Well, hello again, guys, from here inside the BayArena, which is the smallest big stadium I've ever been in. I can't quite believe this place only holds 30,000. Look at the size of it. It felt as if there was 60,000 in here right on the end there when Grimaldo goes through and equalises. And starting at the end is the only place to begin this video reflection. I've just spoken to Eddie Howe downstairs and addressed my question is there are positives to take from this and there are also negatives. But we've got to start with the latter of those, and that is the concession of another late goal. Different competition, different country, same problem. In the Premier League, no team has surrendered more points from winning positions than Newcastle. It's now spread this evaporation to the Champions League too. And when you sat there in the press box, and I've spoken to you about this before, about that feeling of almost inevitability, that when you're sending your report back to London, and when it's especially a later kick-off on the hour, there is that nervousness that you're never quite convinced when you're reporting on Newcastle that a lead and a winning match report entering those final stages after you've sent your copy back, that it is going to stay like that. You've always got that suspicion in the back of your mind that you're going to have to rip it up and rewrite it, as we did have to here. And there's that nervousness, especially when you are away from home, that the email's just got a little bit further to travel to London. I know that sounds ridiculous, but just being in these surrounds tonight, I was never entirely convinced Newcastle were going to see it out at 2-1, especially as we moved beyond the 85th, 86th minute. What is it about having a lead that is such an ordeal for them that they surrender possession, they surrender territory, and with it, they give up the lead as well? And that winning position, now it's almost become a point of nervousness, not a point of strength and a point of control. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. And I mentioned this in the previous video today. I didn't actually have the technical answer as to how it would be different. And talking to Eddie Howe, I don't think he does either. He said these things tend to come around in cycles, and you've almost just got to wait for them to pass and to snap out of it. Now, I don't think that'll be a good enough answer for you guys, and Eddie's got to find a solution to it, because it is going to keep on happening. Newcastle go to Sunderland on Sunday, a team who like to score late goals against a team, Newcastle, who like to concede late goals too. That doesn't bode well at all, does it? Now let's look at the goal itself. It's 2-1 in the 88th minute, and Sandro Tonali is the player you've got to look at. There's the wall pass around him. Now, okay, that can happen. You can be outfoxed by a little dummy or a 1-2, but you've got to go with the man. And for all of the praise and credit I give Tonali routinely, he really has been out of sorts in recent weeks. And it's the wall pass, and he just doesn't follow his man. He doesn't follow Grimaldo into the area, and it's the finish through Aaron Ramsdale. Now, I've got a theory about Tonali in that when he doesn't start in the number 6 position, when he isn't given that responsibility and to be the leading man, he does look a little bit off it. He didn't tonight. He didn't start in 6. He started in 8. And he doesn't seem to play with that same majesty and that same sense of responsibility. The flip side of that is when Bruno Guimaraes goes in there, as we've seen in some recent matches, he does step up and he does seem to enjoy it. So is it not a problem for Newcastle that the two players with that leading man syndrome, if you like, and I mean that in a positive sense, that they do want to be the centre of attention in the centre of midfield in 6? Tonali hasn't looked the same player in recent weeks since he's been knocked out of that domain. There was the illness, probably hasn't been the same player since that bad bout of illness he had about a month, 5 weeks ago. He got a little knock as well last week against Spurs. So, yeah, he doesn't look the same player, because that is Sandro Tonali's game. That athleticism, that sense in danger, knowing how to snuff it out, to put out those fires. If any player you want in that situation, having to have the physicality to follow a runner and to block the shot or to make sure the pass doesn't even get there, it probably is Tonali. He looked slow and he looked laboured there and getting on the end of it. And because of it, Newcastle have lost those 2 points that would have almost certainly put them, all but qualified for the playoff stage of the Champions League at least, if not, in a really strong position to go in through the top 8, which they need, given these games are coming round with the regularity of midweek weekend. They can do without those extra playoff rounds. As it is now, looking at the table, and given the remaining fixtures are PSV, who are in form, and PSG away, that goal there, I think, probably does condemn them to the extra 2 matches. But they've done well to get back into a winning position. The first half, now while we're sticking with let's stick with the negatives. The first half was really poor. Now, the first 10 minutes, I think the possession stats were something like 80-20 in Newcastle's favour. At least the first 7 or 8 minutes, they played with great control. Why can't they do that at the end of matches? Why, when they get into a winning position, don't they play on the front foot? Don't they tease those passes around? They can do it early in a match. I really don't. I keep on coming back to this point, guys. I don't actually have the answer. Eddie said to us downstairs, it's not a mentality thing whereby they do sit back and want to absorb pressure. No, they want to continue to play on the front foot, to be the team in control that they were, certainly from the point of going 2-1 up. They had a spell for, 5 or 10 minutes before that when they were pressing for the second goal. A few minutes after, when they could have gone 3-1 up, they've hit the post. Where am I from? Sunderland, Teesside, wherever that is. Ashington, that's what I'm searching for. They've hit the post at 2-1. So there were fine margins there. They haven't played badly during that period in the second half. There's huge credit for the manner they fought back, and we'll look at the mechanics, how they got in that winning position. But from 85 onwards, you're just thinking, yeah, this is going the way of another surrender, more drop points. And the first half, as I was saying, wasn't good at all, really. Started well enough, but then from that point on, that midfield three, I keep on using this phrase, in theory, the Newcastle's best midfield three, and on paper, they look incredibly strong. They get a lot of plaudits. I honestly think on grass, more often than not, they are out of sync and they don't really function. How many times did Leverkusen play through Newcastle? Leverkusen were the more dangerous team in the first half, evidenced by first half stoppage time. Jarrell Kwanzaa, as centre half, strides into the area, unmarked. He just walks through Newcastle's midfield. He's unmarked, and he has the shot which Aaron Ramsdale flips over the box, going the other way. Newcastle were just painfully slow. They go across the pitch so often. Anthony Gordon on the left was cutting in. They then go from left to centre to right to back again. There's no incision there. Nick Voltemada in the first half only had 10 touches in the opposition box. One of those was a stab wide from a few yards out. Voltemada, I thought, was poor and isolated, not involved at all in the opening 45 minutes. They then go behind, and it's another set-piece concession. For all of the work they are doing and all of the effort they've put into making these gains from dead balls with a specialist set-piece coach coming in the summer, they're getting worse, especially defensively. Now, the cross comes into the far post, 13th minute corner. Sandro Tonali again, in keeping with his poor night, turns his back on the ball, loses his marker. Andrick heads back across. Bruno Guimaraes has jumped for a ball he's probably not making, so his back is turned on the ball, deflects in off him. At first I looked at it and thought, was Aaron Ramsdale to blame? Could he have come and claimed it? On reflection on the replay, I think maybe not, although perhaps it is open for debate. Tell me what you think below the line. So Newcastle are 1-0 down, and they're sloppy in possession again. No real attacking threat. The wingers, when Newcastle's wingers tick, the team ticks on a whole. They've, to accommodate Gordon on the left, Barnes has gone to the right. Barnes isn't the same player. From the right, what does it say for Anthony Gordon? Sorry, what does it say for Anthony Elanga, Ethan? The fact that a £55 million winger can't get in the team, and they're playing a left winger in his position. So, so out of sorts in that first half. And rightly at half time, Eddie Howe revealed to us that he did tear into them. He wasn't happy at all with it. But in the second half, there's the response. Now, Newcastle are lucky that they're actually coming out for the second half with 10 men, with 11 men even. It was one of those, another example of cutting through. Patrick Schick's away, Malik Chow trying to get on terms with him. We said there's a lot of focus on the Germany internationals coming back here. Voltemada and Malik Chow. Chow, a player who I have lauded to the hilt in recent weeks in this season. I said in the preview video, his first name on the team sheet, not just in defence, out the entire 11 right now. Chow was losing his men, not winning foot races, and the incident in the 33rd minute, I think it was, really seemed to knock him. He's chasing Patrick Schick. He can't get on terms with him. He clips him, and it looks like a penalty and a red card. Now, it's not a penalty. The replay shows it was marginally outside the box. That's okay. It's a free kick. Quite how he got away with not being sent off, I don't know. Patrick Schick was through on goal. That should have been a red card. Newcastle should have been down to 10 men, trailing by 1 goal, and they probably wouldn't have got back into it from that point. But as it is, they come out in the second half. Now, 2 weeks ago at Marseille, it was the Nick Pope moment which turned Newcastle's victory into defeat when he has the brain fade, rushes from his area. This time, it was the turn of former Brentford goalkeeper, Leverkusen stopper, Mark Flecken. Now, Nick Voltemada had attempted to press Leverkusen all night, during the first half there at the opposite end without actually pushing any buttons. I think that's what's lulled Flecken into this false sense of security, really. He thinks he's got all day to pick this pass downfield. Well, by the time he makes his mind up, the play clock has expired. Voltemada's on him, wins the ball, and Flecken brings him down. Obvious penalty. Anthony Gordon puts it away. That's 1-1. And when Newcastle got spooked in Marseille, similarly, that howler had an impact on Leverkusen. And Newcastle, from that point, they grew. Anthony Gordon was excellent in the second half. For all he had an indifferent first half, he played like a winger should play. Got at his man, committed him, got crosses in, had a shot that was saved at 1-1. Louis Miley then comes on on the hour. Now, Joe Linton didn't seem to be too happy to come off. He'd gone down injured. We watched him walk up the touchline. There seemed to be a little bit of an exchange with Eddie Howe, where Howe said, well, no, it's my decision. You've come off, yes, you may not have been injured, and you're saying to us you're okay, but you weren't okay in terms of your performance. Again, Joe Linton, wasteful on the ball. I touched on all of this in the preview video, and it all played out. So Joe Linton comes off, and Louis Miley comes on, and all of a sudden Newcastle have got more control, and they've got more composure. And what a brilliant goal it was. Again, it's Gordon committing his man, stands up the cross with his left foot, and Louis Miley, a brilliant jumping header, climbs on the back of you, shows real intent and grit and aggression to get on the end of that header. What a nod. I've nearly fallen over the seat in front of me just as Louis Miley fell over the top of his man. Newcastle are 2-1 in front. And on the whole, there's more aggression about the performance. Malik Chow recovers from his sticky first half, nearly makes it 3-1. Jacob Murphy hits the post. Voltemar all of a sudden looks a little bit more of a threat, has one shot which is deflected wide. But again, you're thinking they need that third goal to go and win the game. When they don't, and when that passage of superiority does expire and does begin to fade, and the game flicks from there to there, and you've sent your winning match report of Newcastle being all but into the last 16, last 32 of the Champions League, yeah, you just know it's coming, and it's Tonali who switches off. Comes into the area, and the shot goes through Aaron Ramsdale. Now, Ramsdale hit a little bit of stick online for the 2 goals. I thought Aaron Ramsdale had a good second half there. He's made some big saves to keep Newcastle in. If you look at the stats, both teams traded the same amount of shots, same amount of possession. It was pretty even, probably in the end, a draw is that fair result. But it could and should have been 3 points given the position they got themselves into. And as Eddie Howe said to us downstairs, they've shot themselves again. He didn't really have the answer to it. He was just as annoyed with the concession from the set piece in the first half. So while there was reasons and 2, fine positives, the second half response absolutely deserves praise and gives them something to build on going into the derby on Sunday. Eddie Howe named his strongest team for me tonight because he wanted to create momentum, rhythm and feel good going into the derby at the Stadium of Light. He didn't have that at all in the second half. He had it for 40 minutes in the second. So that's what they've got to take from it. Again, guys, this video shouldn't be too negative because there were positives to be had there after the break in terms of a collective improvement, especially when Louis Miley came on, and individual displays. But it's got to be the worry that, going to Sunderland, they've shown themselves to have that soft underbelly, that mental fragility, that they can't see out games. Set at the top there like sand through the hands when they get a lead, trying to hold on to the advantage. So anyway, I touched on, didn't I? I said there were some good individual performances. So let's go to the merit stars. And 1 star, well, that goes to Aaron Ramsdale. I just think he made some saves. There was one especially at 2-1, and when he did make it was a little bit of a double save there. When he makes that, you think, oh, that might just be the moment, actually, where they've avoided conceded the equaliser. Alas, it was not. But I thought a little nod to Aaron Ramsdale. 1 star tonight. 2, well, they've got to go to Louis Miley. When he came on, touched on it already, Newcastle immediately looked a better team. And I'd be tempted to keep Miley in the side down at Sunderland, especially as he's a Geordie. He will know what it's about. I think they're going to have to pick the team as much on mentality as they do anything else on Sunday at Sunderland. And Joe Linton, while I think he probably is still, I would shade him in terms of being a player for that occasion. If you're looking on form, Miley's the player in the better place right now. So Louis Miley, 2 stars, and the 3, it's got to go to Anthony Gordon. I saw it in the second half. He showed there why Howe does pick him, why Eddie Howe does put him in his best 11, why Eddie Howe preferred him and gave him the nod in his preferred position on the left, and why he will start on Sunderland. It's a brilliant penalty. All that debate about should Nick Voltemar take penalties, 3rd on the spin, spot kick conversion from Gordon, and he just looks so confident. Someone I know who really, really puts a lot of work into that. So 3 stars, Gordon. But the challenge to him now is go and do that on Sunday. Go and take it in, because that wasn't a 90-minute performance worthy of 3 stars there from Anthony Gordon. It was only 45. So that's the challenge for him now. Show you that player over 90 minutes and show you that player over 90 minutes week on week. It's too flashy, too bitty at the moment from Gordon. But anyway, tonight he is, I think, for me, the worthy recipient of those 3 stars. So yeah, guys, tell me what you think below the line in terms of the individual awards I've handed out there tonight, but also the collective. Where are they going wrong? Where are they going right? Where does it leave them going into Sunderland at the weekend? As ever, so much to pick through. Please, if you haven't already, go back and watch my preview video. It's as much about looking ahead to Sunderland and details the trauma and what was a fairly eventful day for me yesterday in getting here to Leverkusen. Now I've got to try and negotiate a way back because KLM, as I said, when it was a no-show for my flight coming out here, Yeah, they cancelled my return leg coming back. So I may get the ferry, my dearest Brenda. Anyway, yeah, a lot to write home about after tonight. You write below the line. You tell me, dearest Craig, what do you think? And I'll see you again at the weekend. Yeah, looking ahead to the big one at Sunderland on Sunday. Okay, guys, take care if you're travelling back. Safe travels. Auf Wiedersehen.